Quite the Sunday morning across much of our state as buildings shook at the foundation during a powerful earthquake. We're learning of 100 homes and businesses damaged near the epicenter of the 5.1 magnitude earthquake in Sparta. And take a look at these pictures. A Sparta road cracked in half during the chaotic few seconds. From Murphy to Manteo, people felt the earth shake around 8 this morning. One viewer in Wentworth sent us this picture. Chelsea Lothian says the powerful quake shattered her flower pots and a mirror. Thank you for watching WFMY News 2 at 6 online. I'm Chad Silber. Allegheny County Emergency Management says at least 100 buildings have been damaged. The mayor of Sparta has even issued a state of emergency tonight. Most of the damage is limited to cracked or lifted foundations, damaged rock walls, and severely damaged chimneys. Emergency Management is driving around to meet with homeowners to check the extent of the damage. We met two people who are now trying to figure out what their insurance will and won't cover.
I was asleep in bed with my boyfriend when the walls and my bed started to shake, and he jumped over top of me. It lasted what seemed like forever. It was probably less than a minute though. Everything fell off the walls of my house. Mirrors are broken, picture frames are destroyed.
Business owners in Sparta are also cleaning up today. The owners of Just for Looks Salon and Tanning spent the morning cleaning up damage. Their surveillance camera captured the moment the earthquake shook the building. One of our weather spotters, Scotty Powell, saw some of the damage firsthand, including this major crack in the road in Sparta. This is even much worse than that. A home dealing with some extensive damage. The chimney on the front of the home collapsed on the front lawn from the powerful tremor. He also ran into the Allegheny County Sheriff, who explained how the morning went in his neighborhood.
It was pretty chaotic at my house. All the neighbors experienced a lot of chaos, and we've been going around today looking for injured folks. We've not found any major injuries.
The sheriff also says they're dealing with multiple people who can't go back into their homes tonight because it's just not safe. People across much of the eastern seaboard felt the powerful earthquake. It was most powerful here in the Triad. Sparta is 56 miles from Winston-Salem, 80 miles from Greensboro. WFMY News 2's Ben Smart heard from Greensboro families who say the earthquake woke them up.
And I was like, oh my God, we had an earthquake.
A sleepy Sunday in North Carolina turned downright scary when the ground started shaking. A 5.1 magnitude earthquake at 8:07 a.m. Its epicenter in the town of Sparta near the North Carolina-Virginia border. 80 miles away in northeast Greensboro, the rumbling woke Lance Parker up.
Actually in a literal dead sleep. And what woke me up was I have some signs on my wall that just kept rattling. And it woke me up. I was like, what is that noise? And then I heard like what sounded like a subway going under my house, just like a loud grumbling noise.
Parker says the earthquake lasted what felt like 1 to 2 minutes.
It's like the ground literally felt like it was about to just break apart. So I was bracing for it.
Also in Greensboro, Kelly Bumgarner and her sons Adric and Jareth felt this morning's quake.
In and try to wake me up and tell me that the house is shaking. And I'm just like, y'all are crazy. I'm going to go back to sleep.
Jareth barges in and he's like, the house is shaking! And I was like, yeah, I noticed that.
North Greensboro resident Tamara Staten says the tremor terrified her.
I was sleeping in the bed and the whole bed shook and I woke up and I was thinking first, am I dreaming this? Well, it was a hard shake. That's what surprised me. And normally, like a train goes by, you feel that kind of vibration, but it was harder than that. It scared me.
The last earthquake in North Carolina of this magnitude, back in 1916 in Asheville. More than a century later, 2020 making history.
Hope it doesn't happen again, but I never know.
And we're working to get more information, but specifically in the Piedmont Triad, we have not heard of any major damage or injuries reported from the earthquake. Chad?
Ben, thank you. No surprise, this has been the talk of social media today. Many of you have posted videos and pictures, some serious, some not so much. This is probably one of my favorite. Welcome to North Carolina. Week started with a hurricane and tornadoes, ended with an earthquake. Remember, we had a hurricane just a couple of days ago. This one came from Felicia Clemens. Gotta love SpongeBob SquarePants, and gotta love waking up to a 5.1 earthquake in North Carolina. Doesn't surprise me anymore. Of course, we get all 4 seasons in one day and then some. And I like this gift too. How I woke up this morning in Charlotte, North Carolina. Wait for it, used this great picture from Jurassic Park. You remember that one? For sure felt like that magnitude 5.1 earthquake here in Charlotte. Next up, Brian Hall, one of our photographers. Earthquake in Greensboro would just make 2020 even better. Felt the house rumble as I was getting ready to head to Sedgefield Country Club for some Wyndham Championship course shots. And Teddy Bridgewater, the Carolina Panthers' new quarterback. This is, yes, a lot, many people's mornings today. And Tim Buckley, this crack appeared in Dwayne Young's garage in Stokes County this morning after the earthquake. We've seen a lot of pictures like that. Adoria Chumba, one of our reporters, she says, so that was an earthquake. The first time I felt such. I got up, looked out the window to see if it was a large truck passing by, and went back to sleep clueless about what had just occurred. Courtney Kiley, our morning executive producer, says she is still shook, obviously pun intended, that she woke up to a literal earthquake today. And Tim Buckley, you can see this, you can't hear it right now, but you can see this on his Facebook page as well as our website. In this person's Nest Cam, you can hear things rumbling in this surveillance video. So definitely a wild and crazy morning for a lot of people in our area. As I mentioned, several people across several states felt the power of this earthquake. Former Chief Meteorologist Grant Gilmore posted this on Facebook today. It shows the seismometer at the Disney Wilderness Preserve in Florida detecting the earthquake this morning. That's about 500 miles from here. Donna says she felt it in South Carolina. She says, I live in Greenwood, South Carolina. Talking to my daughter in Simpsonville, South Carolina. She said her house was shaking. I said it must be an earthquake. At that point, there were some rattles. Then the house shook for a very short time. And Debbie says she felt it about 4 hours west of here in Seymour, Tennessee. She said, I was washing my face when all of a sudden the house moved and the shower doors rattled. My husband said, did you feel that? Okay, I want to bring in Christian Morgan for some insight here. Christian, this was really a historical earthquake for our state.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Chad, you know, when you think about earthquakes happening in North Carolina, it's not the first thing that comes to your mind. They actually do happen. They're not all that uncommon. The thing that's uncommon about this one is that it was so large. It was 5.1 magnitude. So it's definitely something rare for us here in North Carolina. That's no doubt about that.
And so, I was talking to you earlier, Christian, about kind of the layout of North Carolina and where this specific earthquake happened. And you were mentioning that the mountains, kind of a good indicator of why it happened there specifically.
Yeah, you have to all think about, just kind of the natural lay of the land and how mountains were actually formed. So there's a lot of pressure but in the land and in the Earth's crust, especially in our mountains. And so when things tighten up or when they start to loosen up, that's when we start to get tremors in the Earth's crust and we get earthquakes. There's also a fault line in the North Carolina mountains. It's actually called the Brevard Fault Zone. And then there's another East Tennessee seismic zone. Those are the closest ones to North Carolina that are still active and that still present some kind of activity. So of course, the likelihood that we're going to see some rumbles or some earthquakes in our mountains and along the spine of the Appalachians is just kind of a given, just kind of the normal lay of the land. And you just have to kind of think about, we go all the way back in time and think about how the mountains were actually made. There's so much pressure in the Earth's crust along our mountains.
The natural question, a lot of people wondering now, will we experience some aftershocks? And there have been some already.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people reach out to me on social media today, not only myself, but also Tim Buckley have been talking about this kind of all day. It seems to be the question, okay, so we've had this big one, so what happens now? And actually, if we go back to yesterday, last night, and through the overnight hours leading up to this, there were actually a lot of tremors beforehand. It's what we call foreshocks. So those were kind of some early indications, and normally they lead up to a bigger event like we had today. Now, of course, it also leaves you asking the question, is there a bigger one after this? The chance of that happening is less than 1%. This was kind of the main event for that. So as we go throughout time now, there have actually been 2 aftershocks earlier today in the 11 o'clock hour this morning. Those were much smaller, only between a 1.7 and then a 1.8 magnitude aftershock. So those likely weren't felt by many people across the area, only those who were really, really close to it. But those are the 2 aftershocks that the USGS has reported so far today. I wouldn't be shocked if we had another 1 or 2, but again, once we've kind of had the big main event like we had today, all of these aftershocks will be much, much smaller.
And if your Sunday wasn't busy enough, hey, we have to talk about the weather. Apparently there's a forecast you have to give us.
Yes, there is still weather happening. It's pretty stagnant, though. We're kind of back to that very typical summertime weather, if you will. It's hot, it's muggy, but at least looking across the triad, things are quiet for the time being. And I think we'll stay pretty quiet tonight and really heading into the first part of the week, though. As we head through the middle of the week, though, that might change a little bit. I do want to show you just on one of our maps here where that earthquake was this morning. Yes, in Sparta. And notice it says the depth is 2 miles. And so people are asking, oh, what does that really mean? That's just how far down in the Earth's crust this actually was. So this was a pretty shallow earthquake, and typically in North Carolina, when we get those, they are quite shallow. Here, I've also plotted those 2 aftershocks that we have reported from the USGS so far today, a 1.7 magnitude and a 1.8 magnitude aftershock. Also, Chad was talking about just how widely felt this earthquake was. Yes, of course, all across North Carolina, but even as far as New York, up into Ohio as well. It's the largest one in North Carolina in over 100 years. And in fact, the strongest earthquake, if you will, on record for North Carolina was actually back in 1916. That was a 5.2 magnitude earthquake near Asheville. And of course, you can see in the last, since 1976, where most of those earthquakes have been, right along the mountains and the foothills where we expect that to be. And actually, it's not all that uncommon that we get earthquakes in North Carolina. Like I mentioned earlier, it's just the fact that this one was so large that is very rare. Taking a look across the triad, you see some sun, you see some clouds, but it's a nice evening. It's a hot evening across the triad. 90 degrees in Greensboro, 89 in Winston-Salem, and 88 in Burlington. Like I mentioned, quiet on the radar. There were some showers just to the east of Asheboro this afternoon. Never caused us any problems, and they kind of fizzled out as they did move east. Like I said, I think we will stay mainly quiet as we go through the rest of the evening and overnight hours. Your Monday, a little better chance, but I don't think it's going to be widespread storm, shower, or storm activity tomorrow. About a 30% chance of an afternoon shower or storm on your Monday afternoon. Tonight, mostly clear skies. It's still going to be muggy, dropping down into the upper 60s to near 70 degrees. Your Monday, it's a lot like Sunday was, starting out in the 70s, warming up into the upper 80s by the afternoon. And of course, just watching for some afternoon showers and storms. By the way, if you're keeping track, it's 25 days now at 90 degrees. We average about 37 of those a year. So we are making up for lost time.
All right, Christian, we do appreciate your expertise both in the weather field, but also the geology field. And thank you for sending in all of your pictures and videos. Our team is actually right now working to gather new information, new pictures and new videos from this morning's earthquake. And we'll have a complete wrap up tonight on WFMY News 2 at 11. Thank you for watching this online edition of WFMY News 2 at 6. Have a great night.